Hi everyone, it's Darin Eppich. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to discuss the pros and cons of West Hollywood, considered by many to be one of the most desirable cities in all of Los Angeles and possibly in the state of California. Just so you know, I'm also a realtor in West Hollywood. Our office is located on the Sunset Strip at Sotheby's. If you're thinking of buying or selling in West Hollywood, please reach out. Our contact info is below in the description. I promise we won't bite. But now to give you just a brief overview of West Hollywood. The population is 35,000. It was incorporated in 1984. It's home to the world famous Sunset Strip, which actually has been pretty popular since the roaring 20s. Then it's a very dog-friendly city, a very walkable city. And the median age groups are 20 to 29 and 30 to 39. Very youthful, creative here. It's located just east of Beverly Hills, west of Hollywood, and south of the Hollywood Hills that everyone always talks about. West Hollywood. There's a little brief overview for you. And now we're gonna go into the pros and cons of West Hollywood for buying here. Here's the number one pro, or the first one I'm listing for pros to buying in West Hollywood. It's the nightlife entertainment. It's real simple. There's a lot of options in West Hollywood, more so than I think all of LA. It's one of the, I would say, funnest or most social or nightlife oriented cities in the state of California. It's considered to be one of the more social friendly, entertainment friendly places in the country. A lot of New Yorkers like West Hollywood. You have live music venues like Troubadour, Roxy, Rainbow Bar and Grill, the Whiskey Go-Go. These are all infamous places for artists to perform. You have the world famous Sunset Strip, which has some of these live music venues, but also like restaurants and bars. Gonna rattle a list right now of some of my favorite places to go. You got the world famous Abbey, which is great for everyone. It's a very popular, especially day drinking place on the weekends, and also into the night. You have Laurel Hardware, which is one of my favorites. You have Isabel of Fairfax, which is one of my favorites for when I want to get fancy. Usually during the holiday times, I go there quite a bit for drinks. You have The Nice Guy, you have EPLP, you have Catch, which is people love for like a vibe and a scene, but also great sushi. The list goes on, depending on what part of West Hollywood you're in. There's tons of restaurants and places to be social at. And on top of that, there's great annual events that happen in West Hollywood during award season. You got like Elton John's Oscar party at the Pacific Design Center, if you're lucky enough to go to that. You have award show parties all through, LA and Soho House and different venues in February because of usually we have the Grammys here and the Oscars, obviously. June Pride, which is right now, we're in June, Pride Month. We're gonna have a huge party on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood that people love to go to, and it's gonna pack all the bars and restaurants the weekend of Pride. You also have the Halloween Carnival or Halloween Parade that happens every year, and obviously around Halloween, that people flood and dress in costumes, like glorious costumes every year. So it's a very fun place. That's one of the reasons why people get attracted to moving to and buying in West Hollywood. Number two, home appreciation. This is obviously probably the most important to people, besides lifestyle and loving where you're living, etc. But this is a very important aspect, home appreciation. Depending on where you I found a source that said in the last 10 years, West Hollywood's appreciated home values went up 95%. Whereas that's like top 20% in the country. West Hollywood, you're never gonna have a problem selling your property. Always gonna be a desirable city. I can't imagine it changing anytime soon or anytime in the future. It's been this way for years. And if you go through Redfin, which I did also to give you kind of even a better snapshot, over the last 4 years, single family homes median sale price has gone from 1.01 million in May of 2018 to recently 1.81 million in April 2022. That's a 74% appreciation or median sell price increase. If you're looking at condos, it went up from 4 years ago in May 2018, 813,000 to 1.01 million April of 2022. We're still waiting to see the stats for May, but that's a 24% increase, and that's condos. And condos are starting to kind of, become popular again because COVID's over, etc. But yeah, you see that the appreciation's there. A lot of people own their condos for years here and use them as like a, place to go back and forth with, or they rent them out and they just hold on to them. I mean, that's pretty common here. Also, for investors who are thinking about renting their property after they purchase one, upper 80s percentage-wise is, the city is full of renters. A lot of people are common to, it's pretty common for people to rent in West Hollywood. So you should have a surplus always of people that want to rent, because a lot of people that have lived in West Hollywood, they stay and they generally, want to live here. A lot of people, I've noticed they haven't left. I lived for majority of my time in LA and West Hollywood, but I've definitely moved to, a little south, but I'm always there. But I notice a lot of people don't even want to look other places but live in West Hollywood once they've lived there. Third on the list, walkable city. You might wonder why this is important, but when I say walkable city, West Hollywood is pretty condensed. The neighborhoods, the streets, everything is very friendly. In terms of convenience, I can tell you that years ago, I got in a car accident and my car was being worked on. And, I rented a car for a week. I spent, I think, 3 months walking and Ubering around the city of West Hollywood. And if I had to go somewhere deep, I would just Uber. And I found it to be pretty easy. For convenience-wise, for going to the grocery store, for going to my shops, having fun with friends, work. I spent like 3 months without a car, and it wasn't really that big of a deal. Everything's kind of at your fingertips. So when I say walkable city, you can pretty much walk everywhere in West Hollywood to get what you need. I mean, there's grocery stores everywhere. Trader Joe's on Sunset and Crescent Heights, Trader Joe's on Santa Monica east of Hauser. There's a number of parks to walk to, convenience stores everywhere, a Gelson's on Santa Monica, a Trader Joe's, another one on West Hollywood West area, which is down Santa Monica closer to Westmount. I mean, the list goes on and on. Like, in terms of things you need for the house and supplies, it's everywhere. So walkable city is very important. It's a selling point for people in West Hollywood. It also makes it just appreciate your city more when you can walk around it like that and you don't have to be just always in the car. So another pro to buying in West Hollywood, besides being a walkable city, besides having great home appreciation, besides having a lot of fun things to do, or entertainment, nightlife, dining, there's a handful of parks, and also a great place, a great park, Runyon Canyon, that people go hiking and do yoga. Probably the most common, most popular place that people go to in the West Hollywood area. They take their dogs there. It's a way in the city to be able to see all of LA, but also feel like you're in the outdoors, which you are. And there's some really good trails. There's some pretty easy ones, but there's some, really pretty challenging trails. And it's a great way to just disconnect from the city for a second and kind of get out of your head, if you will, and just kind of like, relax. And it's very common for a lot of people to do this. Like, some people do this daily in the evenings before sunset or first thing in the morning. But it's a great place to get, to kind of exercise, but also feel like you're not in a city. So yes, Runyon Canyon, the parks. You also have Plummer Park, which is north of Santa Monica, getting closer to La Brea. Poinsettia Park in that pocket too, just south. Then you have the West Hollywood Park that just recently did a big renovation. There's a great dog park there. Actually, one of my colleagues takes her dog there, I think now daily. But you have a lot of outdoor space to enjoy the beautiful, 300 and something days a year with sunshine in Los Angeles, in all these parks in West Hollywood. So that's another reason why it's nice to be living and buying in West Hollywood. Another pro to buying in West Hollywood is beautiful properties. Right now, in terms of single family homes, I'm gonna mention 2 properties here. One's on Orlando, one's on Huntley. The first one on Orlando, it's like a compound, a little over half an acre. It's listed for $16.995 million. It's at 948 North Orlando. It's a beautiful compound. Another one, to give you an idea, is 371 Huntley, which is a beautiful, little over $6 million property, almost $6.1 million. Architectural, very cool home. You get a lot of people, developers, architects that take the plots of land that are in West Hollywood and you see them like redesign these into these cool, contemporary, or beautiful properties. Another Great thing about buying in West Hollywood versus, let's say, our neighbor Beverly Hills or Bel Air or pockets in the hills is West Hollywood, it's more of the flats, obviously, but you also don't see a lot of properties that are in those other places, Hollywood Hills, Bel Air, Beverly Hills. I mean, everything's a lot more inflated in terms of cost. So you get a lot more for your property in West Hollywood than you do in these other pockets. The other thing is there's a lot of luxury condos too, which we're gonna mention right now. There's right now 5 condos, penthouse, or residences, depending on who you ask, that are all listed over $10 million right now. The buildings are the West Hollywood Edition, the Pendry Residences, and the new one, 8899 Beverly, which I just recently saw. Probably the best things about the Pendry is the access to the rooftop pool, but also the amenities and the Brightly, which is a members only club. When you talk about the West Hollywood Edition, I feel like the architectural lines and that whole feeling there as well, it's being exclusivity to a place. 8899 Beverly, like I was starting to say earlier, that's a newer one. Some of the units or residences have just, I feel like every room has a view. That's a selling point, along with they have pool area that has like, it's really nice, feels like, they say Cabo or Tulum. I get it, it's nice. I would say it could be bigger, but if you're a car enthusiast, 8899 is great because it feels like a luxury garage down below. Almost feels, better than a dealership. It's like I've seen in $30 million properties. Some of them have their own stables. Like I think they called them stables when we were there, and it was, I can see that, luxury stables for cars. If you have nice cars, this would be a great place to park them. Luxury condos is a really emerging thing, and it has been a thing in West Hollywood for a while. People like luxury condos in West Hollywood. And those are the 3 that I mentioned because they're the newer ones and they're probably the fanciest of all of them. And, but yeah, like I said, 5 residences over $10 million right now. That is, if you like luxury product, West Hollywood's great for luxury product and newer construction, if you will. Now the cons of buying in West Hollywood. I'm gonna use the word that every LA person talks about. We're gonna use the word traffic. Traffic is a con for buying in West Hollywood, and I'll tell you why. It's not so much because there's more traffic in West Hollywood per se in different neighborhoods or different street lights or different intersections. Probably the proximity or the ability to get to a freeway. The 10, 101, or 405, they're all about 20 minutes, I would say, easily to get to. I would say the Sunset Strip during 5 o'clock can be pretty jammed up. Just a little tip, don't take the Sunset Strip around 5 o'clock or early in the morning around 8 o'clock. The reason why I mentioned traffic is because if you have to get to a freeway, for example, or you have to go to LAX, or you have to get to the west side, or you have to go to the valley, there's certain aspects, even though it's centrally located in West Hollywood, that access to the freeways to get other parts of the city, or let's say go to Palm Springs or whatever, that's an extra, it's not close to the freeways. So I gotta red flag it. I gotta let you know that traffic or proximity to the freeways can be a pain in the butt sometimes. So that's a con for buying in West Hollywood. The other con for buying in West Hollywood is cost of living. I read all these review boards for City of West Hollywood, and this kept coming up. And I kind of found it funny because although this is a con to buying in West Hollywood, if you're a property owner, you may look at it as like, well, property values are going up, things cost more. I always say things cost more in places that are desirable because West Hollywood's a desirable city. I kind of think, of course, cost of living is going to go up if it's a desirable city. I would say cost of living's gone up in almost every major city dramatically in the last couple of years because of inflation, but also just if it's a desirable place, you've seen people move to it. So it doesn't surprise me. I guess, for some people it's annoying if they've lived here for a long time and they've realized it's cost them more. Maybe they're not making as much money. So it's kind of a bummer for them. But for someone moving here, cost of living costing more. If you live in the East Coast or in some pockets of the world, West Hollywood's not that expensive compared to a lot of places in the country and outside of the US. That's my take on it. But I gotta mention it because a lot of people on reviews for the City of West Hollywood, you could see people complaining about the cost of living, so I'm gonna mention it. Final thoughts. West Hollywood's a very desirable place to live. Obviously the pros outweigh the cons. You have a lot of people that are always looking to move here. There's a lot of people that want to live here. Some people can't afford it, honestly. Some people figure it out. When I moved here, I just figured it out, and everyone just kept saying West Hollywood would be a place that I would love. And I've spent most of my time in West Hollywood. I do most of my real estate in West Hollywood. Our office is in West Hollywood. And to speak to the pros and cons, even the con of cost of living, like I said, if it's a desirable place, the cost of living goes up. It's pretty commonplace. Also, you saw that the appreciation went up quite a bit. I would say that if you are someone moving here looking to buy a single family home, you are probably gonna be looking at the $2 million range to maybe quite a bit more depending on what your criteria are. In terms of condos, you have options from the $700,000 range, $650,000, $700,000 range, all the way up to, gosh, you can see those luxury condos. I think there was one listed for over 10 million, or there's 5 of them listed for over 10 million. I think even one's 17 million at the, I want to say the 8899 Beverly. But it's a great place to live, very desirable place. Cedars-Sinai is really close, which I forgot to mention. There's a lot of shopping that I didn't even put in. It wasn't one of the pros. It is one of the pros. There's a lot of shopping. I frequent the Beverly Connection. I frequent the Beverly Center. I go to the Grove a lot, which is technically not West Hollywood, but it is right there. There's other videos that if you need to see about West Hollywood, that's in my library that talks about fun things to do, annual events, etc. Go check those out. If you like the video you saw today, please subscribe, like the video. It helps the algorithm. If you're looking to buy or sell in West Hollywood, please reach out. I want to help you guys. I'm on a great team at Sotheby's, and we do a lot of business, and we'd love to help more people out. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much.